Hi, I'm Cynthia Schiller. Please like and subscribe. I have kind of an interesting topic that I've been kind of promising you guys is when I was being made inside my mom, I was supposed to be a twin and my twin passed away before we were born. And trying to figure out emotional trauma, the emotional damage that we go through before we're even born. So I had not moved at all during my mom's pregnancy after this half miscarriage. And so was I going through trauma because of the way my mom was feeling? Was there something in that womb where I felt a loss? And we're going to talk about just babies in general, how they pick up from their mother's emotions, the outside sounds that they hear, because they can hear when they're in the uterus. And I know during my custody battle, my attorney was pregnant. She was pregnant with twins and she lost them. Also, when I was with my narcissist, the first one, I had a threatened miscarriage. And a lot of it, you wonder, is it physically who I am? I don't drink, smoke. Now I have occasional drinks, but I never drank, never did drugs. Even on the antibiotics that I took, a lot of times I wouldn't take them just because you can get yeast infections. And I'm like, I'd rather suffer with the cold. And so I was about as healthy as you could get. My blood pressure is great. And I was having a threatened miscarriage. So I was on bed rest from month 5 with the first one. She was born healthy, a little smaller. I'm 6'1". Her dad's nice and like a bodybuilder. He's tall. And she was a little under average by just a little. I also gained 55 pounds, but she was a little smaller. So was it the trauma, failure to thrive type stuff? That relationship wasn't quite as mentally crazy. It wasn't as hot and cold. It was kind of, he was very melancholy. The other one is boisterous and exuberant, and then you get cut off and ghosted. So that was like a super flip. I was back and forth. So we had a couple miscarriages with the second one, and we're wondering, are these narcissists made or born? There's a big debate. Some of them think it is genetic, but if we can bring it back into the in utero, it might be something to think about, because often they're raised by narcissistic parents, or one overcompensates. So it's just an unhealthy environment, and that usually leads to the grandiose narcissist. But the vulnerable are more from like abusive parents. But in utero, the mother's going to go through some things, and there's also a release of different hormones. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. That is it something to do with the brain damage that happens before we're even born? And does that lead to abandonment issues? Was the fact that my other half, my twin, did I sense it being there? Did my mother's emotions over that? And then her fear that I didn't move. Maybe I didn't move because I was afraid that I picked up on her emotions. So experts are still trying to figure this out. And they know that babies can feel these different emotions, whether it's stress or joy. And can the baby feel unwanted? Is this one thing that I was researching. Can the baby feel unwanted? A lot of times there's that failure to thrive. We need to be loved. We need to be loved to survive. Like, people die without either a super high self-esteem, because I know there was one guy stranded on a island, but he could have gotten love from animals too. But we need to be loved. So it's this big mystery. And how does this impact a child later in life? So can a baby feel rejected? From a psychological stance, it's kind of difficult to say, but babies who are already born can experience rejection from a mother. There are decades of research on these attachment bonds. It helps explain everything, but we're not really quite sure yet if the babies experience rejection from the mother before they're even born. And it's hard to research. We can't like interview the children. And there's a standpoint from the neuroendocrine standpoint, which is the chemical or hormonal exchange between the mother and the baby. So we think it can be possible. It's well established that a mother who is in distress will release these stress hormones to the child, and it can impact the child's development. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of research on the long-term implications, but in 2018, there was a study, and it noted that people who believed they were unwanted were more likely to have an insecure attachment style as adults. Whether they push people away or they latch onto them, it's an insecure attachment style. And when you either smother someone or you push it away, the relationship's going to fall apart. There's a lot of dynamics going on, and it usually relates back to that mental illness or impairment, if it's not a complete diagnosable, but there's still impairment. We've been impaired, and we're trying to heal from that. So sometimes, sometimes people struggle to feel connected with their unborn child. And if you go through this, staying detached during a pregnancy, sometimes it's a form of self-protection. Like, we get scared sometimes. Am I going to lose this child? Am I going to be a good enough parent? Am I going to have enough money? And, sometimes it's due to whether we had a stillbirth or a miscarriage, or we know somebody who went through that. But we got to be careful about the emotions if you guys ever end up pregnant. So the effects of stress on an unborn baby. Now, some stress is good. There's eustress, which is the positive stress. It motivates us to take action. So just like, there's times, finances have been tight and it is a stress, but it can either motivate you to get a better job or motivate you to do something that normally you wouldn't do. So it can turn your life around. It can make your life better. So it can be good. It gives you personal growth. And it can also be true for babies in the womb. Because it's anticipatory and sometimes exciting and a challenge. And then afterwards you feel a pride. But in 2016, they did some research that mild to moderate stress can actually help babies develop at a more accelerated rate. But there's also a study in 2010 that found babies of mothers who had some stress during pregnancy had rapid brain develop and matured more quickly. So like I said, that eustress can EUSTRESS actually can help. It can help, just like in our lives. It can help. You have a test coming up. That stress can cause you to study. You're going to learn more. So in 2015, there was another study done that noted that the short-term stress doesn't seem to have a negative impact on a developing baby. Now, we got to remember, we went through CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the prolonged abuse that we went through. If I called you fat right now, you could probably deal with it. But if you're going through that over and over again and people are tearing you down, it eats away at you. So sometimes we can handle short-term stress or short-term distress, but too much stress over this long-term gives challenges to the hormonal system, just like releasing too much or too little cortisol into the amniotic fluid. So in 2019, they did a study, has existing literature that links stress during pregnancy in babies with anxiety, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also challenges with language, traits of autism. We are going crazy with how many people are getting are autistic. I remember driving and they had these billboards. What was it? It was, I think, trying to remember the exact number. 1 in 179 kids are being diagnosed with ADHD. And then it turned into 1 in 129. And my last look, I remember 1 in 179. Now it's like 163. Almost everybody is getting diagnosed with traits of autism. Does this link to narcissism, to the emotional abuse, the links? Also, we're going through some financial stress. I'm real curious, and I'll do some more research on autism because that was just a 2-3 year span with these billboards that I was noticing how quickly we were having people with ADHD, or I'm sorry, autism. And I see it in the school system that it's changing. It's not that we're finally diagnosing people, because I see it in the kids. They are different and at a more accelerated rate. So, you know, it's worth noting that, you know, there's not enough information to assume that stress during pregnancy is the only reason that this stuff happens. So children may be raised by parents who continue to experience stress. So is it pre-birth, post-birth, or a combination of the two? So parents who are chronically stressed will have difficulty managing their children's behavior because they're caught up in what they're going through. So it affects how they handle the children's behavior, their emotions, and it's just this like snowball trickle down effect. And, you know, there are children at risk for these outcomes based on the environment they grow up in or the environment when they're in utero. So if you are pregnant, try not to stress yourself out. Try not to beat yourself up over things. We're all imperfect. Just do the best you can. Stay as calm. And, you know, there's exercises like deep breathing, mindfulness practices. But what exactly do these babies experience inside this womb? So people from different cultures, different spiritual beliefs, have different beliefs on what exactly goes on in the womb. So it's hard to measure exactly what is going on. But some research suggests that these babies experience sound, visual processing. They can even pick up on the mother's emotions before birth. And it's really weird. I don't know why, but every now and then, like my ex loved Pink Floyd. And so like I kind of like when I heard it on the radio, kind of just played it. We weren't together, but it reminded me of him and I was still in love with him. You know how that goes. But it was weird. When my daughter was born, she not really, I mean, she was a little baby, but she picked up on when Pink Floyd was on the radio. Like it was familiar to her. And I kind of think it's because of me listening to it when I was pregnant. So different sounds in 2013, research played some words over 25,000 times while this baby was inside the womb. And when the baby was born, their brain activity, which is measured by an EEG, electroencephalogram, suggested that they even recognize these sounds. And I studied some languages where my dad had all these records. You guys are young. Do you know what an LP is? But a record where I played it subliminally, fell asleep to learn Spanish. Who knows how much that helps, but you know, our brain picks up on sounds. We remember things, even when we're not really aware of certain things. And as far as the 2017 study, they found that 39 babies within the womb preferred an actual light pattern that looked like a human face. So I wonder if, you know, the stretched skin in the water, they could see like a shadow of a human face. And it was compared to an inverted triangle. So that suggests, based on that study, that there was some amount of visual processing and facial recognition could begin even before birth, based on that study. Emotions, the babies that are affected by their parents' emotional state while they're inside the womb, you know, the full extent isn't known, but they're trying to, they're saying that there's something there. So for example, when mothers feel joy, they release oxytocin, the mother does. And this is also known as the bonding hormone. So when the mom is happy, she releases the bonding hormone oxytocin. We have that when we have sex too. We can release oxytocin. That's why sometimes we confuse sex and love, because we have that oxytocin, that bonding hormone. Sometimes it helps relationships, but we also get it confused sometimes. So it suggests that the more oxytocin that's released during the first trimester, that's the first 3 months, about 12 weeks, the more bonding there will be between the mother and the child after birth. The first trimester is the most critical. There's a lot of quick development going on, and it affects the child the most during that extreme growth time. Sorry. So tough emotions may have an impact as well. There's a 2020 study that showed that growing babies can be impacted by different mood changes, also trauma. Now, we had that September 11th that happened, trauma, you know, extreme distress, just like my lawyer. She really cared about my case and she was stressing out over it and she miscarried over it. There were babies that were still born after that September 11th, but you know, it's hard to tell if it affected the unborn children. And I need to do more research on how many miscarriages, and sometimes we can't always research that kind of stuff. And also complications. Now, with my first one, I had a threatened miscarriage. I was spotting, and the other narcissist I was with, I had actual full miscarriages. The baby didn't have the fetal pull, heard the heartbeat, or it was at 12 weeks, and we didn't see the heartbeat. So it didn't have the fetal pull, and I ended up needing blood transfusions, and it was kind of a sad story. But there are factors that will potentially interrupt bonding with the child while in utero. Now, this is anticipatory anxiety. It could be whether you're hoping for a job or are you going to get your mortgage, but a lot of this is everything going to go okay? Are we going to be able to give birth? So some women go through a lot of stress on that. And my, you know, let's say it was a drug user, and they're like, did I already mess up the egg? Is it going to be healthy? Did I make a big mistake? You know, what's going to happen to my child? So you get really anxious. Financial distress. You can stress out over, we have another mouth to feed coming. How am I going to afford the prenatal care? Hormonal changes. That can cause issues. And substance abuse, you know, whether it was you were strung out before, now you got to clean it up a little bit. So now your body's going into shock, withdrawal, and the damage that's done, or if you're still using, a lot of things affect this baby. So is a narcissist born or made? You know, there's unwanted, unplanned pregnancies, partner abandonment. Now you feel alone or scared that you're going to have to raise this child, and it's affecting the unborn child. And it causes a malformation. The narcissists have less gray matter in different areas of their brain, and this can happen with children before they're even born. So it's important to try to bond with your child before they're born. Talk to them, you know, and just you know, rub your belly, things like that. You can sing, but can a baby feel abandonment before it's even born? It's kind of interesting. Like, I have some abandonment issues. You know, I also told you guys before that I was a burn victim at my 5th birthday. I was stuck in a hospital crib. They thought I was younger, so I had to stay in a crib. And, you know, I didn't have my parents. They came and visited, but I was still taken from my brothers and sisters and not in my home with my parents. You know, they were pretty good about visiting, but is that something that affected me? Is that why I feel abandonment issues sometimes? Or is it that, to be honest with you, I think I'm okay. I think a lot of it is just the narcissistic abuse. You know, some of it does trickle in because we don't know how to handle it. We don't know, or at least me, how to take a stand. Because we feel, you know, we take a stand that they could go. You know, we want it to go right. We're like, I don't know, if you don't respect me, I'm out of here. And we're scared we're gonna get, well, fuck you then. Because that's kind of the attitude of the narcissist. And it scares us. But once we don't set our boundaries, they take advantage of it and they see it as weak. And this is something I want you guys to understand, is us being kind is a weakness. but it's also an open door. We're kind to them. They use whatever they need, whether it's sex, money, place to stay, a companion to a wedding, whatever it is that they want, they have it, whether it's for financial gain or a ride to work. We're nice. It serves a purpose. But as the relationship grows, we're kind of like starting to like have some resentment too. Like, wait, I'm doing everything. Do I get a turn in this? Do I get a turn? And the narcissist kind of went with the flow that we're nice. So they're doing that with the new supply. They're taking it for what it's worth. And they're using up all the supply because they don't give back. Like you and I, we could have an exchange of a conversation where I'm like, how are you today? And you're asking how I am. And we're going back and forth. With the narcissist. They often stop conversations. So it's really hard to text them. Some of them will berate you. And if you try to take a stand or do the silent treatment, all hell's going to break loose. But it's a double standard because they'll ghost us, hang up on us, not show up, go back on promises. And I just thought it was interesting as far as what goes on in that brain, the release of the oxytocin. Can the baby feel unwanted? They can feel more wanted with the release of the oxytocin. But if they're missing that, just like right now, I'm missing somebody to cuddle with. The baby's going to feel something. Is it going to be like a loss? Did I feel a loss when I was in utero? Was I picking up on my mom's stress? And this is something I want to do more research on. But, there's something called tableau rase. It's a French term, which means basically like a blank slate. There are some psychologists that believe that we're born with a blank slate. Are we starting 100% fresh from the day we come out? Or does it go back several months? Because children, even at the age of 1, have different personalities, even if they're raised by the same children. I also want to do something on birth order. Birth order makes a difference sometimes too, on how you're treated, whether you were the firstborn son or, a wanted or unwanted child, planned or unplanned. And they do say there's like a 7-year gap. So the first child has a certain trait. They're usually stronger, independent, things like that. More like as far as strong, like confident, I guess. I don't know the right word. But if there's a 7-year gap, like I'm 14 months younger than my brother, so I'm the second born. But if there's a big gap, this child is considered the same type of personality as a firstborn. So we'll get more into that. But comment below, have you guys noticed anything, whether it was stress with a pregnancy? Hopefully you haven't lost a child or went through a miscarriage if you wanted the child. But the stress of these narcissistic relationships affect us as mothers. They cause stress, and that stress can be passed on to the child. So even before they're born. Now look at your narcissist. What were their parents like? So they might have had a genetic component, plus they had the toxicity, plus they didn't have that oxytocin. If the narcissistic parent of your narcissist is missing out on oxytocin. So our generation, like I'm 52, I just had my birthday. In my life, I see a big difference in people. And we're teaching people to be narcissistic. The reactive abuse that we go through causes us to turn into narcissists or narcissistic. And when we do that, it leads to our children having problems. And when I was with my narcissist, I think I overcompensated. How did that affect my child? And we got to get this together because it causes brain damage. And that's why it hurts sometimes when we're trying to heal. It physically hurts us. Go through it. Go through the pain. That's you healing. Just like, you know, I had broken bones and needed surgery, and I put it off for the longest time. I'm walking around on broken legs, but I went through the pain and got better. If I didn't go through the pain, I'd still be broken. We're still broken until we go through the pain. Give yourself that emotional surgery. Let yourself heal. You're rewiring your brain. The narcissist fucked our brains up. And it's going to get better. You just got to rewire it. That fake it till you make it that I keep talking about, smile. I talked about the vagus nerve, how if we're frowning a lot or just frustrated, and it stimulates something with the vagus nerve. It tells our brain what kind of state we're in, and that's going to cause damage if we're always sad. The brain activity is different when we're elated, when we're excited. There's a lot of activity. And also be careful of adrenaline. We get really anxious sometimes. We get so scared. You know, they had that recent shooting at the school. What was it? 19 people died. The cop was trying to save his wife, who was shot by the shooter. It was like a 4th grade class. And sorry, I'm not remembering all the I just said the word vagus nerve, Uvalde. So he was there trying to save his wife. He's a cop. He gets a text. He died 2 days later because of all this anxiety. He had a broken heart syndrome, which can lead to death. An overabundance of adrenaline is toxic. Too much adrenaline can kill us. So we have to practice relaxation. We have to practice self-care. We have to let ourselves sleep. So if you're going through depression and you feel like you're sleeping more, it's okay. It's okay. But don't get too wrapped up into it. Have a nice balance of taking some naps and then getting up and going for a walk, or taking a nap and going and sitting and having coffee with someone. So take care of yourself, and I hope it was interesting to you. I'll do some more research. Topic requests are welcome, and you're a soul survivor. Hang in there.